As his wheezing made his chest heave up and down, Konaway stretched out his stiff limbs. He opened his eyes in a daze. His thoughts were blank, and when he tried to think of what happened, nothing arose. Humiliation, anger, fright, and surprise all mixed, and was more than he could think about. However, he was taken aback at the display reflected in his vision next. The yellow flame disappeared from the dark ceiling, and the green flame flared up next. Guess we're just going from Snake Boy to Snake Boy now. They were still coming. There was an unpleasant, lingering sweetness left, but Konaway wiped his lips and sat up in a low crouch. Just like with Verge, the devil calmly descended. Well now, it's my turn. Being Verge's opponent must be hard, huh? Sexual desire is exhausting, don't you think? This devil wore glossy black attire on his thin body, but he spoke in a cheery voice contrary to his appearance. The upper half of his face was covered by what looked like a mask, but a big smile was clearly formed on his lips. Behind him was a tail just like Verge's. That was probably a devil's tail. This time, the green snake writhed around Konaway's stomach. One too many arounds, but yeah. Nice to meet you. I'm Froud. I control joy. Though, I think you know this already. You must choose for me, too. Why? Why are all of you guys... and me... Desperately propping his creaking body up, Konaway bristled up as he glared at Froud. It hurt too much, and he felt numb. He no longer knew what hurt, and where he felt hot. Froud opened his arms widely and happily tilted his head back. This is great. I think that figure is kind of cute. A little fuzzball that desperately bares its fangs and bristles its fur. How admirable. Is this an order from Leeks? Leeks? That doesn't matter. Because right now, I'm the one before you, right? Still laughing, Froud lightly bent his upper body and slowly crossed his widespread arms in front of his chest. Why don't I give you a taste of my joy? His final words were whispered, and his smile turned cruel. Froud's crossed arms opened powerfully, and a sharp green wind ran by. Exposed directly to it, Konaway turned his face away and protected his head with both arms. His heart beat loudly, and he opened his eyes wide. He heard a voice. He tried to shake it from his ears like a hallucination, but it was different. The voice certainly echoed in his head. Screams. Shouts. A voice pleading for help. Cries. Little by little they increased into a steady flow, one big mass. On the backs of his eyelids, in his ears, and the back of his forehead, he heard countless voices screaming. It was a mad cacophony of large and small, male and female, and Konaway thought he'd go crazy. But the strange part was his own emotions towards them. He felt exquisite exaltation. Konaway was confused, and felt like his body was melting away into the raging voices. When do you think one reaches the pinnacle of their lives. It is the moment their lives are It is the moment their lives are taken by another. At that time, the soul cries out to live. It tries to escape the unknown thing called death. Surely at this moment, this is when the fire of life truly blazes. When one gets a taste of this, is it not the greatest joy? The moment their lives were taken, then these voices, savage impulses formed from a joyful tickle inside his chest. Konoe's heart leapt again. The impulse coursed through his body along with his blood. With this hand, Konoe wanted to crush everything. Sweet splattering blood, exposed entrails throbbing with a lovely pulsation. He wanted to discover all those secrets daily life never yielded underneath the skin. He crouched on the floor and exhaled a hot breath. I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to kill. It's different. Oh, you seem to enjoy it, so allow me to service you most beautifully in your false freedom. Proud raised one hand and snapped his fingers. Right after it, Konoe heard a hiss of the wind. Suddenly trembling, Konoe's body went stiff. There was a heavy impact to the back of his stomach. It was as if he'd been pierced by a huge blade. Could it be? Konoe looked down to his stomach as he kneeled, but saw nothing. Long after the surprise, the pain came. He felt like a sharp object was certainly piercing his guts. The wind passed lightly by Konoe's cheeks, contrary to his own heavy breathing. Now, choose for me. Huh. Sin. I've received it. Thank you. Through the searing pain, Konoe chose whatever words came to his mind. Everything faded, and he was set free. Both Froud's figure and the feeling of his stomach being pierced incredibly faded away. Lying warily on the floor, Konoe cast a vacant look to the sky. The green flame vanished. 2 more left. Why did he need to go through this? Exhausted in body and mind, he thought of the name that was the root of all this evil. Leaks. Resentment rose with vivid color into his turbid thoughts. This time, the blue flame flared, and another devil stepped down. His body cried out, but it was impossible to escape. However, Konoe raised his upper body and glared at the devil. The next devil narrowed his eyes sadly for some reason, and watched Konoe for a while. His complexion was pale as death itself, and his figure was wrapped in solemn clothes. He seemed to have an air of rejecting everything. I am Kultz. I control grief. Don't feel embittered. We'll end this quickly. The devil's voice was low and calm, and Kultz, as he introduced himself, knelt in front of Konoe. When he came close, Konoe already bristled out and growled, wary by instinct. But an arm stretched without concern, and a pale hand touched his head. The The blue snake bounded inside him. Don't touch me! Emotions flowed into him and he immediately tried to stop his movements. This was a sensation he knew well. This was the empathy that he had felt so many times. His heart was flooded with crushing sorrow, and Konoe knit his eyebrows tightly. He felt sad, and immediately began to shed tears and cry out. You too have to shoulder a sad fate. You are not here because you want to be, are you? Why, you... something like that? Things sometimes go in directions we don't expect. It is the same for us. Such a way isn't the real intention, but it can't be helped. Kultz's hand moved down from Konoe's hair to gently caress his cheek. From the places that his hand touched, Konoe's eyes... to the menu, apparently. From the places that his hand touched, Konoe's eyes felt hot, as if sadness itself had soaked into him, and he wept without really knowing why. Kultz grimaced apologetically. I'm sorry. Please choose. Grief. Certainly. I have received it. When Konoe chose his words, the feelings of sorrow immediately left, and Kultz also disappeared. He sensed his body was paralyzed, but compared to what happened with Virgin Froud, it was over disarmingly quick. That devil had a mysterious aura. Only one remained. The blue flame disappeared from overhead, leaving the blazing red flame. As the devil finally descended, Konoe mistook the crimson air billowing behind him for fire. Finally. I've waited a long time. The devil slowly walked forward and knelt down, peering at Konoe's face. Konoe's exhausted body no longer had the strength to stand, but he clenched his teeth. But he clenched his teeth forcefully and stared back with determined eyes. The red-haired devil narrowed his eyes as if evaluating him, and then touched Konoe's chin to make him look up. It was hot. The unexpected heat of the hand on his chin made his ears twitch. I am Raziel. I govern wrath. Wrath is the source of all power. No one is without anger. It dwells in your eyes, too. Speaking in a confident tone despite his low timbre, Raziel gave a small smile. Both his body and his smile seemed calm, and an immeasurable spirit was conveyed. Inside Konoe's body, the final red snake writhed. Such vivid anger. It is bright like a flame. The body may be exhausted and without strength, but the soul refuses to give in. He spoke lightly and let go of Konoe's chin. Let us fan the flames within you. I am sure it will burn beautifully. A red flame burned in Raziel's outstretched hand. As soon as Konoe saw it, it became impossible to look away. His heart began to throb when he saw its movements, like a flickering tongue. It was like an illusion, dyeing his eyes bright red. An impulse of intense anger welled up. It swirled from red to black before his eyes, and he breathed heavily. His pupils became sharp as needles, and his tail bristled out. He wanted to destroy. Destroy! There was a sound ringing in his ears, enough to split his head open. From that dark excitement, he wanted to burst out laughing. Choose as you wish. Understood. The final red flame faded away, along with Raziel. The crackling of the fire died out, and only Konaway's fervent breathing disturbed the eerie silence. There was now nothing overhead. Was it over? He noticed the uncomfortable feeling of the snake slithering in his stomach had gone away, and the heat of his markings had cooled down. Covered in his own tears and spittle, Konaway was in a wretched state. He was ashamed, and could no longer speak in his misery, but he felt like he'd scaled a mountain, so he did not care about his appearance anymore. Rolling face up and pushing himself up, Konaway was startled. He peered down and lifted up his gauntlet, furrowing his eyebrows tightly. They had vanished. Your ears! You're back to blonde boy. Kitty cat. His markings, the proof that the curse was real, had vanished. As if washed away by rain, the jet black had become clear. Why? Okay. At the same time that he remembered this, the darkness suddenly burst open. Bathed in pure white light, Konaway closed his eyes to the painful glare. Howling, roaring, both high and low in pitch, the wind blew powerfully. He held his breath and raised his arms to shield his face. The gale was that intense. Suddenly, the wind stopped. Past his closed eyelids, he saw his surroundings brighten. Little by little, Konaway opened his eyes. Green reflected in his field of view. The lush greenery, the smell of soil and grass brushed his nose. He looked around with uncertainty. The next things that caught his sight were familiar azure eyes. Konaway. Asato. Are you okay? Asato peered at him with an awfully worried expression. Only after that did he realize he was sprawled on the ground, lying face up. Konaway was lying in the grass in the center of the field, where the lights intersected. His hands and feet felt too heavy to move, and his body creaked, but he took his time and slowly sat up. So you're awake. Oh, so you're awake. Ray's voice accompanied the sound of the shaking bushes. What happened? You just suddenly collapsed. Collapsed? You looked like you were having a bad nightmare. Or, yeah, that's an aside line. You looked like blah 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 blah. You looked like you were having a bad nightmare. Konoe began to think his brain finally Konoe began to think, his brain finally working again. Was it a dream? No, that couldn't be, and considering that, what was this awful sense of fatigue? His hand subconsciously probed his belly. Those devils, the pain, the shock, even now the lingering memory vividly remained. Hey! When Rei saw Konoe, his expression suddenly became stern. His gaze moved quickly from Konoe's ears to his tail. Rei firmly grabbed hold of Konoe's arm. What's the Oh. No, that would be like... Yeah, gotcha. That would be Konoe. What's the meaning of this? No, wait. What's the meaning of this? Catching on, Asato's gaze was also drawn to Konoe's arm, and he frowned. Your markings. They're gone. At these words, Konoe immediately looked at his arms. Huh? Gone. The black markings had vanished. That hadn't been a dream after all. Damn it. What about his ears and tail? He held his tail up where he could see it. His pounding heart suddenly made a huge leap. It's blonde. It's changed back. His tail had returned to its original color. Konoe gave Asato and Rei a questioning look. Are my ears normal too? Yeah. Konoe looked at his tail in disbelief for a moment, stunned. He tried wiggling the tip. It was definitely his. That was no dream, but it was too sudden, so he still didn't feel like it was real. He didn't feel happy, surprised, or relieved. He wondered if he was still dreaming, even now. So the curse is gone? That is... Konoe was about to talk about what he experienced, when his ears perked up and trembled. An intense chill ran over him. Asato and Rei's ears flicked up too, attentive to the sounds around them. This presence... Oh, that leaks. Or fury. A black flame appeared in the sky. The flame flared up, steadily forming a shadow. There was a heavy hiss of fabric slicing the air. At the figure that appeared, Konoe bared his fangs and growled. Leaks. Oh. You safely escaped the darkness of the devils. What do you mean? No more than that. It means they failed. Leeks extended his hand. Flames dwelled in the 4 stones surrounding the field. Red, blue, yellow, green. Leeks with his jazzy background music. The same colors as the devils, and the serpents. The 4 flames blazed above, and black shadows wavered inside. Couldn't be. Konoe opened his eyes wide in shock. Verge, Proud, Cults, and Raziel. They manifested before the stones containing each flame. Neither Asato nor Rei moved an inch, glaring at all of them. Leaks joined the devils surrounding Konoe, and a sinister air enveloping the field. This place has been full of magic since long ago. You were born from this place. Now, the magic has died out. Speaking to none of them in particular, Leeks turned to gaze at the four devils. He did not fall into any of your hands. I'm disappointed. You devils, feared by many, is this all the power you have? Proud shrugged. I won't make excuses. Naturally. It must be said, that cat has quite an unwavering soul. Raziel inclined his face defiantly. Leeks turned to Raziel. As compensation, I'll take your power, he said in a calm tone. What? The devil's complexions changed. I've never heard of such a thing. This was a contract. At most, lament over your own errors. How tyrannical. Leeks held his arms out again. You think I'll let you? Take this. Verge brought down his hand, from which light was born. Like a flash of lightning, the light crackled in the air and sped in Leeks' direction. But right before the light reached Leeks, it was extinguished. It was as if he'd erected an invisible wall. Shit. Shit. It is futile. Leeks' outstretched hand clasped closed. The four swaying flames behind the devils gravitated towards him. I never did think we'd get along. What a coincidence. Neither did I. The devils grimaced bitterly. The four-colored flame tips flickered towards Leeks, drawn in little by little. Conaway could only watch, stunned. Kultz closed his eyes and sank down to his knees, unable to take it anymore. One after the other devils collapsed as well. The four flames formed a small globe and settled in Leeks' hand. As if checking it, Leeks clenched the globe. I have received it. This bastard. The figure of the heavily breathing devils became transparent. This was what you were planning from the beginning. Who knows? If you're talking about my plans, that would certainly be one of them. I need power, but even if that cat had fallen to one of you, it would not have posed a problem. You say we've been used? I've got a bad reputation. Leeks cocked his head, mockingly. Well, I'm sorry, but you are no longer necessary. Now please excuse yourselves. Leeks drew his fist, clutching the globe of flame to his chest. When he opened his hand again, the globe had completely vanished. At the same moment, the transparent devils distorted strangely and instantly changed to pure white ash. The ash rained over the stunned Konoe like snow. Gazing at the sky, Ray smirked. Is he a monster? Leeks clasped his hand under the scattering ash. His masked face looked down. Intimidated, Konoe clenched his teeth. The atmosphere indicated this was the owner of an incredible power. What exactly is your purpose? What's it got to do with me and the devils? Leeks didn't answer Konoe, but spoke of something else. You are likely to entertain me. I have only one piece of advice for you. The one deeply involved with you will soon follow the same fate. What do you mean? Who knows? Now, until our next meeting, farewell. With a low chuckle, Leeks spread out the cloak he was wearing. The fabric fluttering, Leeks' figure was entirely concealed in a black shadow. Wait! Crouching at the same time he shouted, Konoe leapt up high. The pain and fatigue in his body vanished. He reached his arm out, but Leeks' shadow became a black sphere and floated even higher. He melted into the sky, which had begun to change into night. Damn it! Failing to capture his target, Konoe landed on the grass. Rei and Asato rushed up to him. That bastard sure runs away quickly. Konoe looked up where Leeks had disappeared in the sky. His departing words rushed about in his head. You are likely to entertain me. That was what he said. This isn't over yet. With a low murmur, Konoe clenched his fists. Nothing had been settled yet. Nothing at all. The curse was broken, and the devils disappeared because of Leeks. He was left not with relief or joy, but an indescribable emptiness. Suddenly feeling a gaze on him, Konoe turned around. Rei was looking at Konoe with a stern expression. When you passed out, what happened? Why was the curse been broken? Speak. The curse... broken. Konoe looked at his arms. Both his ears and tail had gone back to their original color. Was the curse really broken? Rei looked dubious. Konoe felt doubtful. What if only his appearance had gone back to normal? His opponent was Leeks. Konoe didn't know what he was plotting. Couldn't this all be a dream? Maybe he wouldn't look normal the next day. Maybe. Suddenly, Konoe became afraid. He was seized with intense agitation and anxiety. The curse was lifted, but why? He felt dizzy. He didn't know what to believe. His own dammed-up feelings now overflowed. In a frenzy, Konoe grabbed both of Rei's arms as he stood before him. Hey! How do you know if the curse is broken? There's no proof anywhere. It could still be there. In that case, how do you know? Can you know how? Konoe. Something warm touched his shoulder. Asato's hand. You should rest today, and think about this tomorrow. This place isn't good. It's better to move on. When Konoe looked back, he met Asato's gentle blue eyes. His emotions settled down a bit. Konaway shut his eyes and took a deep breath. Calm down. He couldn't think of anything else. Calm down. I'm sorry. He loosened his tight grip on Ray's arms and looked down in self-contempt. Ray said nothing but let out a small sigh. Let's spend the night in the forest. Once day breaks, we will return to Ranson. What if we're targeted in the city again? Do you intend to wander around randomly? Judging from what Leek said, nothing's going to happen just yet. But if he wanted to kill you, he'd have done it now. That guy is scheming. He's provoking you now. Indeed, that could be true. Even the devils had been killed very easily. Was their existence inconsequential to Leek's? Then Leek's intentions. Konaway stopped thinking there. He didn't want to think about anything anymore. All right. Before leaving the open area, Konaway looked over at the 4 stones. As the moon of light set, the reflections thinned and disappeared from view. The 4 stones fell silent, even though they looked so spectacular at noon, they looked decrepit now. The place where devils were born had been drained of its magic. Were they really gone? No one knew. In his heart, Konaway told himself that. A hand reached out. About to be grasped, he twisted away. Despite this, even more hands stretched out. In the darkness, he didn't know whether they were coming from the ground or not. Konaway jumped back and dashed out of their way. If he looked closely, many of the hands were cut up and bruised, the skin dark, the bone exposed. When his gaze followed the arms, he saw faces contorted in sadness. Traces of tears blackened on their cheeks, their mouths open to catch him. Chills ran down his spine. Konaway desperately tried to escape, but suddenly, his tail was caught. A shock ran through him, and he almost cried out. It was an awfully cold, moist sensation. The tugging gradually became stronger. Somehow standing his ground, Konaway looked back and gasped. 4 devils grasped Konaway's tail. All of them wore a contemptuous smile, and their eyes shone darkly. There was neither an overwhelming force nor dignity. They laughed like dolls, all with the same expression. Let me go! He felt an unknown fear and struggled fiercely. Even so, the hands on his tail didn't budge. On the contrary, they came closer, like serpents. It broke off. A sound creaked from the base of his tail to his body. It hurt, but above all he was afraid. If his tail was torn off, would his body be ripped apart as well? He struggled desperately. Suddenly, a shadow appeared overhead. There was no light, but he felt a presence in the darkness. He looked up through his dim view while panting in pain, his tongue lolling out. Leeks was laughing. Chuckling, he looked down at Konaway. His cloak swayed, and he held up one hand. The striking motion was etched into his mind's eye. Heat coursed through his arm. When Konaway looked down, innumerable black markings were crawling forth. Surging over him, the markings began to cover his entire body. He saw his tail out of the corner of his eyes, stained jet black. He was terrified. The curse had returned. heat. He didn't know whether it was pain in his torn tail or the heat of his markings. He tried to cry out, but his breath was hoarse as the burning markings coiled around his throat. Leeks laughed mockingly. Was it in satisfaction or in pity? Without warning, the searing sensation of his tail being torn grew worse. No. He opened his eyes. The first thing Konaway saw was the moon of light peeking through the trees. Konaway's heart raced. It was like a painful pressure in his chest. His gaze darting left to right, he reached a hand behind his waist and felt out his tail. It wasn't torn off, so he breathed a sigh of relief. A dream? His body suddenly tensed. What became of the markings? What color was What color were his ears and tail? Last night, the proof of the curse disappeared. However, it could have only been temporary. It could have returned overnight. The sound of his heartbeat sped up. A cold sweat formed all over his body. He wanted to make sure, but if he had the markings, the thought made him helplessly afraid. Konaway remembered his dream. No, was it really a dream? The village cats, the devils, and Leeks, laughing. He remembered it clearly. Leeks' calm and smiling figure nauseated him. He would never give in to him. It wasn't over. Maybe Leeks was, even now, observing his fright and amusement. With this conclusion, his fear vanished instantly. Konaway breathed in slowly and stopped, then raised both hands to his face. There were no markings. He covered his face with both hands and exhaled his held breath. He was glad. How are you feeling? At the voice, he removed his hands from his face. Blocking the soft moonlight, Asato's eyes peered back at him. I've noticed that the background art has changed for both of them. I wonder if that's just for this scene or if it's going to be a consistent thing now. Ray sat beside him with his arms crossed. You seem to be having a nightmare. Ears? Ears? Mine. What color are they? Asato looked like he didn't understand and then gave a small chuckle. Not black. They're white-tipped with brown. I see. So they really had gone back to normal. He sighed again. When he looked over, Konaway noticed Asato was still staring at his feet. What is it? Nothing. I was just thinking that your tail was the same color. So what? Asato kept quiet and stared at Konaway's tail, making him frown. Asato? Nothing. Is my tail really that strange? That's not it. Your restored tail is beautiful. His mouth fell open, and he inadvertently curled his tail up to hide it. Did Asato say such embarrassing things so boldly because he grew up in that cage called Kira, not knowing these things? Dorks. Asato blinked his eye at Konaway's reaction. Apparently, he just wasn't aware. You should try going to Ranson. You could be popular there. Huh? Why? Who knows? Asato cocked his head, genuinely curious. Ray, who had been listening to their conversation in silence, now scoffed subtly. What? What a childish color. Konoe was offended by his condescending words. There are plenty of cats with this color. Forget them. I'm talking about you. Why you? With that color, your appearance matches your attitude. Don't make fun of Konoe. It's the truth. Asato growled at Ray, but Ray didn't appear to care at all. Konoe gave a long, drawn-out sigh as he stood up. Though some sluggishness remained, his body felt a little better. We're going. Ray and Asato stood. Konoe fixed his clothes and followed after them.